Hello and welcome to another bonus episode of Board with Each Other. We are the review podcast that looks at board games and tries to answer the question, how do they play as a pair? So if you love board games and often play as a pair, be that with your significant other, your BFF, or perhaps you find yourself in an escape room that you can't solve, so you decide to get out a nice soothing board game, then we're the podcast for you. I am joined by your usual regular host, Al Simpson.
Hey everyone.
And I am Hannah. And tonight we are reviewing Exit.
The Sinister Mansion.
The Sinister Mansion. So Exit is a series of escape room-esque games. The idea is that each box is a unique or a standalone puzzle that you get to solve, and they come in a range of difficulties from 1 up to, 5?
5, yeah.
The one that we played is a level 3.
Yeah, it was.
The basic premise of the game is that you're obviously trapped in a room and you need to solve puzzles to escape. And the way that it plays is fairly standard across all of the series. So you start off with some contents in your box, including like a little bit of a book or a guidebook. And you'll be given a riddle to solve. That riddle is solved by using a dial.
It's called a code wheel.
Code wheel, yeah. And you have to find the corresponding symbol, which will be on the top of the code wheel, and you use that by using your guidebook. So, for example, that might be a triangle, a star, a square, or something like that. You try and solve the riddle, and that will give you 3 numbers. You plug them into your code wheel, and that will give you another number. You then go to your answer deck, which is a stack of, in this case, 30 cards, and you draw that card. If you're wrong, it will give you a big X, and you have to go back and you have to try it again. If you are right, possibly right, it will give you a sort of like a symbol card, like a card with a series of symbols. You then pick the corresponding item that you are trying to unlock. So maybe it's a wardrobe, maybe it's a desk, maybe it's a lockbox. And it will, on that answer card, it will tell you which other answer card to go to. So you then put that card back in the deck, you go to the next one, and if you are right, it will then give you another...
More riddle cards.
More riddle cards.
Yeah.
You sometimes need multiple sets of riddle cards to be able to solve a riddle, so if you haven't got enough, you might have to go back and solve an earlier one. Mm-hmm. But otherwise you progress through the game as such. If you get stuck, there are a stack of clue cards. The first clue card generally tells you which riddle cards you need to solve it, so if you're missing a couple, and therefore you've got no hope, with some general pointers as well how to solve it. The second one gives you a bit more detail in terms of what you need to actually do to solve that riddle. And then if all else fails, you've got your card number 3, which will tell you what the solution is and how you arrived at that solution. You obviously need to solve all the riddles in order to progress through the game.
There's a handy app which basically takes you through the rules in lieu of a rule book. I think it's a game that's probably very much designed to be played as we've got some friends around, let's crack something out, and there's not enough of us to do a murder mystery. It's that kind of niche, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
But there's a handy app that gives you some flavour text and will also give you a run-through of the rules, so tutorials, so you can sort of play it for everybody, and also has a timer.
Yeah. Scoring, I mean, there isn't really scoring as such, but I mean, yeah, it's about how long it takes you to solve the entire thing and for you to escape, and also how many clues you need to use along the way.
Yeah, you'll get a score out of 10 depending on the intersection of those two things.
Yeah. You also, in the box, certainly in the box that we had, there were other stuff that you got to unlock. So, for example, additional materials, bits of things that you need to use, and that's sort of like a thing that you get when you solve a problem and you solve a riddle. And
you'll get more gubbins.
Yeah. So as for how long it will take, well, it depends how stupid you are.
Yeah.
But I think you're absolutely right. It's designed to be played across the course of an evening.
Just before anybody thinks that we're being all snooty and snarky about this, we're very stupid.
We are very, very stupid. And that's why this is a bonus edition rather than an actual core edition. I suppose then my next question to you, Al, is have you ever done
I've done a real-life escape room. Yeah, I've done a real-life escape room. It was a really fun experience, but Hannah, who knows our more expanded group of friends, I was stuck with some of our crazier friends. So it was definitely an experience. I had one person badgering and I think trying to pick up the woman on the other end of the phone. I had somebody who just decided they were right about everything and just went off and did their own thing. I was sort of crying in a corner at this point. But it was a fun experience.
Yeah. So I have not done a panic room. The reason I
escape room. You would panic in it.
Yeah,
but it's an escape room.
I mean, yeah, it's funny that I would call it a panic room because it is not my bag. So first of all, you generally do these things on like stag or hen do's or perhaps like work functions, and I know for a fact I would get stuck with that person that drives me up the wall. I also am a bit hard of hearing, so having lots and lots of people talking, shouting over each other is just not a conducive environment.
Yeah, it sounds like something out of your nightmare.
Yeah, I don't like people.
I mean, you do like people.
I do like people. I'm just a bit introverted. Like, I find it all a bit draining. Probably not the sort of thing I would want to do, and just I call it panic room for a reason, because the thought of it makes me feel a bit panicky. So it's not my bag. So when you brought this home, which was a charity shop find...
Yeah, I don't think I would have bought this au naturel as such. I think I spotted this in a charity shop, and having seen them around, and we've never forayed into puzzle games, really. It's not something that's ever sort of like, oh, we need to do this. I just thought, hey, let's give it a crack. So,
but I think for that reason, it really excited me, because actually I could get that puzzle escape room experience at home in an environment that's probably a little bit
more conducive to you not panicking and getting
and also possibly not getting fired. For stabbing someone.
HR. So it seemed like quite a fun prospect, and it's the kind of thing that we just went on holiday and we took it on holiday with us. Yeah. Really easy, very small box, easy to pack. It's like, hey, it's an evening.
Yeah.
After the kiddo's gone to bed, so yeah, the appeal was definitely there.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to say, or should we move on to ratings?
No, I think this is going to be a very short, snappy one, given the nature of it. And I imagine some people are questioning, as like, oh, well, this is a series of games. Why haven't you done a few of them and then done a review?
We'll get to that.
That will become clear as we go through. So yeah, I'm happy to crack straight on to scoring, to be honest.
All right, so first under our general scoring criteria, components.
Yeah, components, set up, tear down, the usual. I think for what you get in the box, it's fine. I think I've been more and less wowed by things at similar price points. I think the level of detail that's had to go into creating it all, you've got to sort of admire.
Yeah. So I think what's really amazing is that even if you get the you get your answer, and even if you get to a card and you think, oh yeah, I've solved it, there's still that opportunity that you've got it wrong. So actually the way in which they've calculated the answer decks and stacked them is really quite ingenious, although...
Yeah, that's more mechanics than components, though.
Okay, alright, fine.
But I mean, the components themselves are fine. There's nothing to write home about here, but obviously they are price constraints to it. You don't want this. We didn't mention it at the top, but this is definitely a one and done. We often take an approach to legacy one and done kind of stuff where we try and actually keep it in such a way, like for example, Gloomhaven, we use removable stickers and what have you.
So we bought the add-on set that allows you to make it replayable.
And we've encountered legacy stuff before where it's like, oh, you've got a rip-up card, you just don't rip up the cards, or you just don't do that.
Put them to one side.
But mechanically, in order to play this, you will have to rip, cut, fold cards, do all sorts of things. So it is genuinely a one and done. So with a one and done like that is genuine, you want to keep the price point low. You are paying for a cinema ticket. You're not paying for a repeatable experience.
Yeah.
So I understand the slight flimsiness to some of it with that.
What I would also say though is, we talked about how we took it on holiday. It is perfect for travelling. Yeah. It takes up very limited space. It
doesn't weigh a lot.
Yeah, it doesn't weigh a lot. And set up, it takes seconds. Like, it doesn't take very long at all. So I think for that, and especially in terms of how well it serves the game for what it is, I rated it quite highly.
My only slight bugbear, and this is personal taste, is the whole thing art style wise comes across very much as sort of computer generated semi-realism art, which doesn't really do it for me. It feels very much like if you've ever played the mobile game The Room, It feels a lot like that. It's just sort of this sort of slightly dingy, hyper-realistic. I didn't respond very well to the art style. I actually prefer something a little bit more artistic. And I think the reason I do mark it down is I feel like in terms of visual puzzles, if they'd taken a slightly more artistic route with it, they probably could have packed more in there and done a bit more with it.
It's interesting that you say that, actually, because now I think about it, like the box itself doesn't really fit the tone of the materials that are inside or the tone of the puzzle. But
again, they've come out with their box style. They all sort of match. That's their branding. So I kind of get that. And I mean, everything's perfectly functional, but it's nothing that blew me off my perch and went like, oh wow. So I gave it a 7.
Equally, I gave it a 7. I think it's perfectly serviceable. I think it's good. I think it's solid, but there's nothing to write home about.
Cool. Okay. This is an interesting one. So we go on to complexity, and this is how well traditionally the rules of the game serve the complexity. And I've treated it as such this time around, because when you're talking about puzzle games, obviously complexity plays a huge part of that. But I am going to park my feelings about that side of things and shut them into the fun category. I am going to talk simply about how the game plays as a rules set. Are you on the same lines as me, or were you thinking more along talking about how complex the puzzles are? But I don't think that really fits in this category.
Yeah. So I kind of went where you're going.
Yeah.
I suppose you go first.
Okay. I mean, this is quite short for me for on that basis. I think as a rule set, it works perfectly fine. It's perfectly. It suits it. You know, there's nothing that interesting here. It's just, find the cards, do this, do that. Anybody can pick it up, which I think is part of the reason for it. You should be struggling with the puzzles, not with a rule set.
Yeah.
So I think in that sense, how well does the complexity serve the game? Really well. Like, it's very, very easy to crack out and set up, and very, very easy for anybody at a myriad of board gaming levels to be able to, okay, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, so I would absolutely agree. I think it was really easy to pick up and understand. We never once had an issue around the rules or what we needed to do. I think the app actually really added value. It really explained it in a nice, coherent, formulaic way that made it really accessible. And the devil is obviously in the puzzles itself. Yeah. But the actual concept of how to play the game, the mechanics of it, piece of cake and really easy to understand.
Yeah, so for that reason, I've given it an 8.
Yep, equally.
I think, its beauty is in that so easy to pick up. No, that's what you want from this. And
anyone could do it, from a sort of preteen, perhaps, up to granny.
Yeah. Until you get to the puzzles, but we'll talk about that in a bit.
All right, so then on to shelf life. So that includes things like value for money and replayability. And so the price point we've established on this is like, what?
10 to 12 quid,
10 to 12 pounds. Yeah. And I have to say, if you think about how much it costs per person for an exit room... then I think that is absolutely a brilliant price point. I think you've got a whole evening's entertainment.
Oh, yeah, I mean, you get 4 people around the table and they chip in 3 quid each. It's cheap few hours in terms of as entertainment goes these days. Which is, I mean, shelf life. If you took that out of it, this would be a 1, because this is a one and done, and it's a 2-hour experience. You get other one and dones that still last you a lot longer than that, but I've marked it up a few points because of its cheap price point. Mm-hmm. However, this is still shelf life, and this is still how much you're going to get from it. And I think I have to cast an eye into other games of the space, and you want to spend 10 to 12 quid on a board game. You could
Sushi Go.
Yeah, you could go and get yourself a Sushi Go. You could, if the planets align, pick yourself up a copy of Love Letter. Things like that, and I mean the shelf life on that is massive, so I would be doing a disservice of rating this anything above I've rated it, I feel. I
also, with my sustainability hat on, which does bother me, I think, in the way that doesn't necessarily bother you, I do have an issue with the concept of one and done, but it's permanently one and done.
Yeah.
You can't trade that on, you can't reset it, you can't give it away.
Yeah. And I agree with you on this point.
I do think there is something quite fun about being able to cut up and rip up cards and all that sort of thing. And there is a novelty in that. but also
it's all the junk that goes with it, isn't it? Because then you've got to bin the box and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so there's an awful lot of waste, and for me, that's not great. And I'm pretty sure there could be other ways of doing it. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, and it feels disposable in a way.
that
I'm a board
shouldn't
game
be.
collector. I like my shelf. You know, I like.
Are you a board game collector? Because we've not talked about that in our marriage.
Yeah, it's just dawning on you now, like a year into a podcast about board games, mate. And there's that. I like the permanence of it all. I like seeing things on the shelf and being able to pull them out. And that just doesn't exist in this. The two worlds don't combine in that sense at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I thought quite a lot about this, and I've settled on a 4. I didn't want to be absolutely like, oh, yeah, I'm going to give it 1, but I also couldn't give it anything above a 5.
So, I mean, I also gave it a 4, but I think as well as the whole sustainability in the back of my head, you know, I'm also looking at this as a series of games, and there are quite a few of them.
Yeah, there are quite a few.
So I'm also thinking about it in terms of the series in general. And will we be going back and buying another one?
Let's not spoil anything. I think they can be inferred from where we move to next.
Anyway, so I also scored it a 4.
Okay.
But it is a really good price point.
Yes, it is.
All right. Did you have any fun whilst playing it?
I fucking hated this.
Oh, he did. He fucking did. Oh, he was so mad. Like towards the end, I've never seen him so surly and so sulky. I was like, it's okay to be done. We can put it down. It's okay.
Sustainability concerns aside, I had great joy in chucking this in the bin. I'm not jesting. I did hate this. I am slightly jesting and exaggerating. I hated this because I'm too stupid to play it.
Yeah.
And I found it frustrating, and I'm not a stupid man. I found it frustrating. Yeah, I'm sure you disagree. I found it frustrating in a way that I don't think much else has ever frustrated me. And I take video games into that as well.
So, I think... We'll talk about this in the 2-player rating. I think, unfortunately for you, you are quite logical and you are a bit of a problem solver in your own way. Yeah. And I think being confronted with things that we felt like we were really close, we felt like we were beginning to get somewhere and beginning to understand. Because obviously you go into this and you're like, well, I'm not going to do very well to begin with because I need to learn how...
how
it's a bit like when you learn to do crosswords. You have to
work.
learn how that crossword puzzle mechanism works. Same principle. But then all of a sudden... we thought we were onto it, we got really painfully close and we knew we were onto the right track, but then it just got really fucking weird and we were like, well, how would we have ever even known that?
Yeah, I think, before I start going on various rants, which I assume I will, I'm going to caveat this with, this is definitely my personal experience, and I'm going to try and talk to that as much as I can, then you can make your decisions about this. This is a really well-loved series, so I appreciate I might be massively an outlier, and that's okay. My main issues with it were twofold. Number one, and my real bugbear with it, is while I found some of the puzzles quite fun, I found the leap from getting the riddle card to knowing what the puzzle is you were supposed to be solving really obtuse. And I had that problem from the get-go. I did not understand, bar one puzzle, I did not understand what you were meant to be doing with the tools that were in front of you. And we had to use a hint card for every single one, bar one, just to guide us to say, oh, what you need to be looking at is this, and what, not necessarily what you need to be doing, but have you looked at this in this light? And I found that leap between riddle card and actually getting stuck into the puzzle itself, that leap really, really annoying and frustrating. Because I was like, I don't understand what I'm meant to be doing.
I think what was also quite telling is that sometimes when we did have to look, we had to look at the actual solution like a few times before we jacked it. We never finished this, by the way.
No, we jacked it in about, I think,
in
about 3/4 of the way through. Yeah. I was like, I'm enough, I'm out.
Even on a couple of occasions when we looked at the solution, we couldn't even figure out how...
We struggled to reverse engineer it.
And I think that was also because we were feeling a little bit...
Pissed off at that point.
drunk,
Yeah.
pissed off. And also I think we both checked out at that point.
Yeah.
So we were like, whatever.
But there was one in particular where I was like, I don't even know how that works, even when you reverse it.
I figured it out in the end, eventually. Okay. But I would also point out that we went too far. So this is one when we had to cut cards. And we went
that was going to be my second, my second point. It's okay. There, you have to make physical changes to this game. And in one instance, it was cutting cards up. So we had the first clue, we thought we knew what we were meant to be doing, but it turns out I cut the cards too far, which meant the puzzle was actually undoable, and that annoyed me. I think that was the final nail in the coffin for me. I was like, fair enough if you get the puzzle wrong, but it's guiding you to do something to these cards, and you can do it wrong, and it's permanent, therefore the puzzle becomes unsolvable. Yeah. And that really wound me up, and that was the point I was like, I'm done with this.
What I would say in its defence is, as I said at the start, you've only done one as part of... We would never choose to go and do an escape room. It is not what we naturally gravitate to. No. And I don't think that we are naturally that way inclined. And I think both of us are perfectionists in our own way. And as a result, when we get confronted with stuff that we can't do... our reaction is, oh, fuck this.
Yeah, I mean, you say that, but I'm not in the board game space, but I think back to video games. I grew up playing point-and-click adventures, which were all about this kind of stuff. And they're one of my favourite genres of game growing up. Like, I do love a good puzzle. I do enjoy solving a really good puzzle. But, I mean, if any of you are as long in the tooth as I am, you will get this analogy. This is not Monkey Island, this is Discworld. There's an obtuseness to the puzzles that almost wants you to call a helpline. It's that level of, like, you need to give the player a little bit more of a thread, a carrot, whatever you want to call it, just to go, okay, there's that leadingness that comes from good puzzle design that I feel like this misses and falls into the obtuse category.
And again, I would also counter that and say this was a 3-star game out of 5 stars, and we've never played a single one of these before.
No, maybe we went in too deep.
I think we probably went in too deep, but like I say, it was a charity shop fine, so why would you not pick it up?
But even if I played it easy and once and got to this, I don't think it would have made a difference.
Do you reckon?
No, I don't think so.
I think maybe potentially we would have done, or at least we... I don't know. There's no way of knowing.
Yeah. But yeah, to go back to the core concept of this, I did have fun in moments.
It really helped being on holiday in the sun.
Yeah, but when you got into the actual puzzles themselves, some of them were really well designed, really clever, and I really enjoyed doing them. I don't want to spoil anything, but there was something around maps. I really liked that puzzle.
Oh, you just went in and you were like, yeah, I've got this, we got it, and you figured it all out, and
really,
I was like,
I really enjoyed it. There were a few puzzles that I really enjoyed. There was one that did things with the components of the board game, which I thought was really quite clever. And I was like, aha, I tip my hat to you, designer, that was really clever. But those moments were fleeting. Mm-hmm. And they were very early on, and the further we got in, and I seen the complexity of the puzzles ramped up, some of them were just unfun.
Yeah.
I
just felt out of my depth in at sea the whole time.
Yeah, I was like, this is starting to feel like work, which is not what I want to do in my board gaming session.
Okay. So how did you rate it?
I gave it a 3.
Oh, but we're bang on with all our scores tonight. I also scored it a 3.
Yeah. I was tempted to throw my toys out of the pram and give it a 1, but I did have fun on a couple of puzzles, so...
I also think I kind of acknowledge that it is not my bag. It is not a game that I would ever pick.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, which you're labelling it, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, listener, take that, don't take that as a damning...
This is not... and clearly it is a fun game because it's really popular and loads of people do it. So obviously people do enjoy it.
It's just not for us.
Not for us.
And depending on your taste in puzzles, it definitely is on the obtuse end of the spectrum.
So let's tally up those scores and see where we end up.
Okay, so that gives us a overall rating of 5.5, and as much as it pains me, we have to put this up to a 6. I don't think this is a 6. But I'll score...
Actually, do you know what? I think 6 to 7 is a really fair place to score this. I think the fact that we didn't enjoy it because it's not our bag
Yeah.
we've downgraded it, and I think...
But it's a classic, don't listen to the scores, listen to the content. You'll get a flavour of whether you'll like it or not.
Okay.
All right, so on to our 2-player ratings, and the first of those is table talk and getting to know you. So how well does the game allow you to communicate and get to know the other person?
Well, it's a problem-solving game. If you didn't talk, you'd be screwed.
Yeah.
So you're constantly talking, constantly floating ideas off each other. And here's the thing. I did find out more about you, or at least I've known you for a really long time, and I knew when you begin to lose your temper with it. And I think...
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, and I think there is something really quite charming about a game that allows me to see...
Watch me lose my shit slowly.
Yeah.
Sort of succinctly. Yeah, fair enough. I mean, as far as... this is a great date game.
Oh, it is? Well, yeah. I mean,
just depending on the person, obviously. Yeah, the table talk element in it is fantastic. You have to communicate, you have to talk constantly, you have to learn things about each other because...
And fail in front of each other as well.
Yeah.
Which I think is also a bit of a gift, really, actually.
It is,
you need to be able to...
Yeah, so if you have a board game curious... I wouldn't say partner, but you're dating somebody that's board game curious, I think this would be great to crack out. I highly recommend that side of things. So I've given it a 9. I
gave it an 8.
Yeah, I think it's really good for that.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic.
Okay. Competitiveness / cooperability. This is a really odd one.
Yeah, so I think I'm probably going to adjust my score, because I've been thinking about it more as we've been talking.
Yeah, because it's not a traditionally cooperative. It's a cooperative experience, kinda. But as far as you talk about board games, it's not a traditional co-op. You're working together to solve a puzzle. But along those lines, you also have somebody looking over your shoulder while trying to solve a puzzle. And I think mileage here very much varies on personality types.
Yeah.
You might have somebody who's like, I know what this is and I'm just going to do it and blah, 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 blah. You might have somebody who's perhaps feeling a little bit unconfident and does know the solution, but then will back off because they're feeling a bit...
But then I also think it's a great leveller, because you've got that overconfident person who decides that... So you're quarterbacker. Who decides they know what they're doing. They go ahead and they get the answer... wrong. And then that creates the space for the other person to start piping up.
Yeah.
I think my problem with this is that I don't give a fuck. I don't really give a shit whether we win or we lose. I'm just not really that invested. So I'm a bit like, meh. I mean, you could try doing this. You could try... Oh, no, I don't know.
Yeah, there's no fantasy monsters to fight, so
Yeah.
your level of investment is already down.
But again, that's the thing about the personality thing.
Yeah,
I'm not
it's
particularly invested in it, so I'm not gonna put my all in.
I think while you do have to work really competitively, there's not an awful... Cooperatively, not competitively. I'd like to see competitive puzzle
Snatching the map out of my hand.
While you have to work cooperatively, there's also not a great deal of space with the materials to try and solve a puzzle at the same time. So you do end up taking it off each other and going, oh, let me do this.
Oh, I've talked about that under scalability.
Well, you haven't. I mean, that's in the future.
I will talk about scalability.
Didn't mess up the edit massively. But yeah, there is this element of there's not. It's not large enough. Like you think, but. I
kind of get the impression when you go to a panic room that one of you will be on one corner solving one thing, one of you will be over the corner solving another. Well, you can't, because you can only work on one riddle at a time.
It's too linear. You're working on the same puzzle.
And you need the source material in order to be able to solve that. And realistically, I mean, you could probably crowd a few people around it. But
it's quite small. You're not talking like a massive macro map kind of scenario here. You're talking like, oh, there's this tiny little bit of whatever, or these couple of cards.
So nothing was bigger than A4?
No. So how well does it work cooperatively? It's a tough one.
I definitely felt like we were in it together. And I definitely felt like we were fighting against something together. And I do think that when you were exhausted with your line of thinking, I had space to come in and take over. Yeah. But again, we solve problems quite differently. Yeah. And whereas I think I'm definitely more of a reflector. I like to sit and absorb and think, and I watch what you're doing.
No, just that.
It kind of allowed us each to have our own moments to shine and play off each other. And the example, I think the first puzzle, in fact, was a really good example of when we worked together really cohesively to be able to solve it. But I think after that, I did begin to lose interest quite a bit.
Fair enough. Yeah, okay. I mean, yeah, this was a tough one for me to score. I have given it a 5.
So I gave it an 8.
Okay.
Because, again, I think that it has an inherent ability to be able to balance itself in a way that I haven't seen other co-op games do, and I think that's because of the nature of it.
Yeah, fair enough.
I think my other problems with it I'm going to talk about under scalability.
Okay, all right, well, let's go on scalability then. So FOMO, now, do we want more people around the table than 2?
So this is my issue. The fact is, it worked. It was a bit of a struggle for us to play and solve a puzzle side by side because of the size of the map, etc. You start adding in more players, that's going to become completely impossible.
I think you and I are going to massively differ on this.
Oh, really?
I think we're going to massively differ on this, yeah. I think this as an experience would be a lot more fun with 4 people around the table.
Do you reckon?
I do, because I think it takes some of the pressure off individuals. I think it adds in different ways of thinking, which will probably make the game easier.
Absolutely agree.
I think there's less chance of 2 people like us getting locked in a tangent with somebody else going, actually, you're off on that tangent, I'm going to think about this way. I honestly think this actually cries out for 3 or 4.
So I think that as a player who kind of is a bit ambivalent about the whole thing and doesn't really give a shit whether we win or lose, I think adding more players would have made me even less engaged with it, and I would have just swanned off and...
But it would have made it more of a amusing social experience. And I think that's where this might actually shine quite a lot.
How do you mean?
Because I think there'd be more banter at the table. I think there would be more bigging up other people when they got the puzzle right. I think as a social experience, I think it would work better with more people around. I think this is something that would fit very much in between the space that is a 2-player board game and a 10-person murder mystery. I think you had 4 people round. Well, in total, I think 4 would be the sweet spot for me. I think this would be a really fun time.
I think 3 is a really good sweet spot. For me,
fair
3,
enough. Well, 3 or 4.
I think, fine. But I think there are probably distinct advantages to it being a 2-player.
Yeah, there are probably advantages, yeah. But
also for all the things that I said right at the start, which is that we know that's not how that's not who I am or the way that I roll,
But how I thought about this was, would I have more fun with a couple more friends? And I think the answer is yes, I would.
I don't think I would.
Yeah.
So I'm the problem. Anna, you are a terrible playing companion. You didn't give a shit from the start. I had a rubbish experience. I couldn't finish the puzzle. You were no help. I threw it in the bin.
Yeah, no,
that's cool,
no, that's not it at all. That honestly is not a dig on you. I just think this would be more fun with more people, and I think while people are having a really good think, you would have a little bit of a chat. I just think it would bollocks up your score if you do this. Like, I want to get the best score. Then no, you probably just want to do this alone if you want to do that. But I think as a greasing the wheels social experience, I think this would be better for me anyway. I think I'd have more fun with more people.
No, I don't.
Fair enough. Well, I've scored it a 4 because of that.
I scored it an 8.
Okay, all right.
I think it's great at 2, and I think
we differ.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely fine for 2 as long as it's your jam.
But I think that's cool because it's what do you listener want to get from this?
Yeah.
And you've got 2 differing points of view there, and what personality type you identify with.
Are you a little bit introverted and find people annoying?
Or you're an annoying extrovert like me and want people to A, witness my intellectual glory, and
which,
B,
by the way, there was no intellectual glory. So if we tally that up, that gives us a 2-player rating score of 7.3, so
a
7. And I suppose what I kind of want to say about this is the reason we're releasing this as a bonus episode is because I think we're kind of aware that we can't judge an entire series based on one game. We didn't finish it. It clearly isn't for us.
Yeah.
But hopefully, if you're listening, it gives you a flavour of what the game is about. And
whether it will be for you or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is kind of what we wanted to achieve with this and why it's a bonus episode, not a fully fledged monthly review.
Yeah. So, thank you for listening. If you liked what you listened to, then please do feel free to give us a review on the podcast medium of your choice. But until next time, be good to each other and play lots of games.